I was connected with an operator from the United States that he took a liking to me, and I needed the work, right? So next thing I knew, I was flying out to Venice Beach, just looking at the properties one by one.
You're consulting a property management company. They're trying to scale, but they're having a hard time. What do you think are the main things that prevent operators from scaling?
That's really the main difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur.
What do you think is missing for there to be a vacation rental Marriott?
That same democratization actually came at the detriment of quality.
Should your strategic focus as a property management company be on the guest side, or should it be on the owner side? And there's so many other examples of this, right? So I think it's super interesting. Now, when you changing subjects slightly here, when you because you have this consultancy, right, that you basically help hospitality companies, build scalable operations and whatnot. Walk me through the process of looking at an operation or at a business from an outside view, from a consultant type of view, because I think it's interesting because like you could force yourself as an operator to act as your own consultant. Like you could force yourself to sort of step aside, step like look at things from another perspective. Yes, of course, like even better if you bring outside help and true expertise, but like just curious to learn about like what's the process, or what are the steps or the questions or the things, the checklists, I don't know, like what is it that you're looking for when you're in that stage of like trying to audit the business to see what's wrong and what needs to be fixed?
Right. So that first thing is really important, because we do conduct what we call a business audit, right? We're an ops audit, right? So it's just really a questionnaire that's given to any of the team members that the executive deems relevant, that they should take it, right? And that also gives us a sense of, all right, how does the executive or the founder or whatever thinks about the people that are working with him, right? Do they look at them from a vantage point, right, where I'm looking down at all these people, or do they look at them as like peers? Is he here to serve them? Is he here to serve himself? Sort of like, you get a lot of a lot of ticks there, in terms of the type of person that you're dealing with. In a way, it really resembles sort of like yeah, like a psychology session, right? You're here with your shrink, and you're telling him, oh, here are my pains, here are my aches, here are my things, and a lot of these things just come from a place of like their own implicit biases guide the situations that they ultimately end up with. Within that same business audit, we sort of immerse ourselves into the operations, and we try to look at the entire operation and see, do these processes, to me as an outsider, do they make sense? Right? Can I follow the thread of the operations and say like, oh, because this was done, this happened, and then this happened, and then the entire chain going down, and you sort of start to see where the chains break. And that's something that's really that's really one of the most important parts, because whenever you see the chain breaking, it's like, all right, now we have somewhere where we can start to see whatever's happening in terms of the operations, and then we just continue going and trying to mend the chains in those places. If it's something like we have to let go of someone, or we have to bring in a new team, or the executive has to have a little change of heart, or a little change of mindset. There's a new compensation structure that has to come in order to further motivate the employees. It's sort of like a plethora of things that could happen. Ultimately, you're managing people, right? Ultimately, that's it, right? And each person within your organization has their own needs and wants, and whatever they think they feel that they deserve, right? So you got to get either as close to it, or provide provide them that if they're valuable enough.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting. You talk about chains, right? And identifying like what's the chain that is perhaps broken or needs to be rebuilt or whatever. Like let's go to the context of a property management company. So imagine you're consulting a property management company that's trying to scale,
Mhm.
right? They're trying to scale, but they're having a hard time doing so. They've been doing it for a couple of years now, but it seems like they're really having a hard time, pressing on that growth pedal and starting to accelerate. Like what are some things that you would recommend, they ask themselves or they, put in place or yeah, just in general, like what do you think are the main uh, things that prevent operators from scaling?
One thing is one thing that I've seen very very consistently has been that they have bootstrapped it enough that they reached their ceiling, but they didn't notice that they reached their ceiling, right? They haven't noticed that they just hit they've hit their head with the ceiling, right? So it's like, all right,
Hmm.
you want to take on, let's say, or you have 50 more units in the pipeline, let's say, right now. Why haven't you onboarded them? Oh, yeah, we're going to onboard them. We just need to have some a little bit more time, or we're waiting to finish up this project in order to start this one. That's a problem of talent, right? You should be able to you should be able to bring in this extra capacity if it's going to generate enough value, right? So you sort of like make the educated guess of like, all right, if these 50 units are going to represent, I don't know, an extra $20,000 in PM commissions, right? Then I probably have around 20,000 of budget in order to make this thing work, right? Let's say
Hmm.
I bring in an extra person. I bring in two extra people that can be easily trained to onboard these units. Is our onboarding process easy enough to follow so that these people with minimal training can they go through it? Um, can can anyone within the team be assigned to manage these people, not do the work, but manage these people while they're doing something else, right? Or while they're focusing on their main task. Those are the things that you start asking of like, you have all these things in the pipeline, but do you have the actual capacity to bring them into the business, right, in a timely fashion? Because if if I'm a portfolio owner, let's say, and I have my 50 units in the pipeline and it's been a month and you haven't onboarded them and they're not listed, I'm looking for another PM. It's about being able to service the two-pronged clients that you have as a property manager. You have both the guests that are your customers, right? And you also have another type of customer, which is more, client type, which is the property owner. If you're a property management company, right?
Hmm.
If the asset is yours, then it's it's you just have one customer, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And there's an interesting not debate, but like conversation that I've been having with different operators in the show, and there's some that are inclined towards one side, some that are inclined towards the other. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. And it actually relates very well with the conversation about the emotional versus the logical side, which is basically should your strategic focus as a property management company be on the guest side or should it be on the owner side? And I've literally had a
Yeah.
lot of people, especially those that traditionally come from the hospitality world and whatnot, be really like guest centric. But then I recently had someone point out that she had actually felt like she felt like an outsider in this industry because everyone's talking about being guest centric, and she just couldn't stand how unfair those guests were sometimes. And at the same time, she was making a good point of like, well, there's so much rotation with these guests. Like the actual partnership I'm building here long term is with my owners. So like I'm gonna build my business strategically centered around being successful with my owners. And if I have to make a choice, I'll prioritize my owner. But then there's other property managers that say, if I have to make a choice, I'll prioritize my guests. So what are your thoughts on that? I know it's a balance, but like, what do you think?
Well, I would go under the presumption of like who's easier to replace, right? On your side,
Mm-hmm.
right? For per prop, and I would say that this would be different for each property manager, right? But I would be more inclined that if you're looking to create a hospitality brand that will probably stand the test of time, and you're going to develop other hospitality products as well, right? Then you would be more guest centric. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the people that I'm looking at creating a hospitality brand, so I would be a little bit more guest centric, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you're a little bit more real estate conscious, right? That you don't want to necessarily create a hospitality brand. You are sort of like riding the wave of cash flow, right? This is cash flowing the most amount right now. So I'm going to go into SDRs because it's cash flowing the most amount right now, and I give them good, I give the guests good service, right? I give them a good experience and all that, right? But there's really nothing special to it, right? So then I would then prioritize my owners, right? Because at
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, right? If you're the second scenario, you you would be more inclined, or you would most easily replace your guest, your tenant, your whatever, right? If a guest doesn't come in, I'll get a tenant. If a tenant doesn't come in, maybe we do something else with the asset piece, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's harder
Mm-hmm.
to then replace my owner if they leave me for another property manager. And then
Mm-hmm.
then on
Yeah.
the flip side, if I'm creating a hospitality brand, the people who actually give me the money are the guests, right? So what is easier to replace, the owners or the guests? No, if I create a very, very loyal guest following, right? And this is not easy at all, right? Generating loyalty from hospitality guests, it's not easy, right? It takes let's say it took Marriott a little bit over 100 years to actually generate something like Marriott Bonvoy, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not easy at all. But if you're more inclined to do that, even if you're doing like a niche type of brand loyalty, the hardest one to replace is actually the loyal guest. So I would prefer to lose a property owner, but not lose this loyal guest, because I know that
Mm-hmm.
whenever another property comes in, they're gonna say, "Oh, anything that this guy brings into to the supply of his company is gonna be pure gold." So this loyal guest will just stay anywhere with me.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting perspective, and I would add to that, the numerical analysis of looking at your CAC to lifetime gross profit ratio. So what's the cost to acquire versus what's the lifetime gross profit that each will generate? And to your point, when you're looking at a loyal guest, over the span of a lifetime, that's worth a lot. I was reading the other day or watching a video that was talking about how much an average Starbucks client generates over a lifetime for Starbucks. It's $14,000, and it doesn't cost them much to get them, for the first time. So, anyways, it's an interesting perspective. Jan, I could keep you here for hours. I know you got to get going for your next meeting, but what one last question here when it comes to this conversation we're having about branding and whatnot. What do you think is missing on the vacation rental side for there to be a Marriott, like a vacation rental Marriott? Like, why do you think that that's not currently in place? And even the companies that have scaled massively in the thousands of properties under management haven't succeeded at building that actual
Yeah,
brand component.
I think this is like a layer cake question.
Yeah, I'll
There's
let you. Yeah,
a
we'll have to do a V2. We'll have to do a second part of the podcast to break this one down.
Yeah,
But I was curious to hear your thoughts.
but but I definitely think that it's ultimately let me see if I this comes out correctly. Let me the fact that we have democratized the hospitality space actually was at the detriment of the quality of the space. So what I mean by that is that the person who made the new hotel, let's say, was an experienced hotelier that already has these other properties and already has nailed down his processes and his overall hospitality experience, right? But then you have, then you have John, that he had an extra space in his back, in the back of the house, and he just listed it, and it started making some money, right? But he doesn't have that sense of hospitality, training, the quality aspect of it, the guest psychology of how, why and how you choose a space, right? So in a way, is that lack of in specific industry experience, right? That we lack in the short-term rental industry, right? So I would go on a limb and say that the modern side of the short-term rental industry appeared in 2009, right, with Airbnb. That was it. HomeAway was there already. Vrbo was there already. From the late 90s to 2005, which then that's when HomeAway came out, right? But it wasn't really a big segment until the part of Airbnb just said like, yeah, we're just gonna open this up for everybody, right? Anybody who has a space and wants to list it will list it, right? But that same democratization actually came at the detriment of quality, right? Then you have unique spaces, you have different levels of subjectivity in terms of what the owner perceives as quality and what the guest perceives as quality, right? The owner may say like, oh, I gave you a bed, I gave you a bathroom, it's clean, right? So whatever. But the guest was expecting this certain type of linen, this certain type of pillow, this certain type of bathroom amenities, right? So that disconnect, right? That subjectivity in terms of quality is actually what I believe is missing in the short-term rental industry, right? They're fundamentally different products between hotels and vacation rentals. They sell differently as well, right? So, but ultimately, that subjectivity of each operator, right, and that lack of I heard of this concept yesterday or 2 days ago, and I thought it was sort of like brilliant. There's like this corporate memory, right, of like an industry remembers how to do its own thing, right, continuously. But if you have no point of reference, it's like, right, you're just building everything out, right? It's this normal person giving it a whack to see if it works.
And every operator now starts almost from zero rather than like starting off from where the previous one sort of left off. And it's interesting too on the quality side how we've sort of come full circle on the Airbnb side, like you were saying, like they open it up to the masses, and now you see them becoming more and more strict and trying to incentivize through guest favorites and through just positioning top 1%, bottom 10%, all those things, and in the positioning and just removing listings that don't comply with those standards. So like I think they've realized the impact that precisely what you were saying, that democratization has had on the quality, and they're trying to revert it back somehow. But we'll see what that comes out to be. Gian, I'll let you go because you gotta get going. Let me know when you gotta wrap up, huh?
Oh yeah, for sure. I gotta go. I had one last idea, but I think we'll leave that to the next one.
Okay, so we'll leave some intrigue. We'll leave some intrigue for the V2. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Gian. This was very fun. I really appreciated having you on, and we'll stay in touch, man.
All right, man. We'll stay in touch. That was
Have a
good, man.
one.